requirements that we do have and some guidelines for students who want to register. As I said, we will have some time for questions at the end, but just to ensure your privacy as well as the privacy of others, we ask that you focus your questions in a general aspect and not to speak to disability or student specific concerns. If you do have individual concerns that you would like to talk about in more detail, students are always welcome to call the front desk. Our phone number is right there, and you can schedule a disability consult. If you have a DAA assigned, you can schedule it with them, but if you have not started the process and don't even know what a DAA is, you can still give us a call and we can certainly schedule a disability consult for you. So to register for accommodations, we have an interactive 3-step process. And the first step of that process is to complete a student accommodations questionnaire. This is the student's first opportunity to share their self-report on what diagnoses they have and what types of accommodations they are looking for at AU, as well as the functional limitations they experience because of their diagnosis or diagnoses. The second step is to submit clinical documentation that supports that request for accommodations. And we do look for a clear connection between what the student is requesting and what the diagnosis and functional limitations are mentioned in that documentation. Steps 1 and 2 can be completed at the same time. They typically are, but if you want to get the process started but don't have documentation, that's okay. You can complete step 1 and come back to step 2 later, same as submitting documentation and coming to the SAQ at a later time. The third step happens after the DAA has reviewed all of the information the student has submitted, so the SAQ and all relevant documentation. And once they determine we have enough information from you, they'll reach out by email to your AU email address, inviting you to schedule an intake appointment. The intake appointment is held on Zoom or in person, depending on the student's availability and preference. And that is the opportunity to share a more in-depth self-report of the limitations you experience, accommodations you've had in the past, so that your DAA can have a wider picture of the challenges you face to determine the most reasonable accommodations for you at AU. On the ASAC website in the tab registering for accommodations, if you scroll down, you can see the documentation guidelines that we lay out for students to send to their providers. And we also lay out some of the additional guidelines on who should fill out documentation, how the recency of the documentation, and all of the information there. And within these guidelines, we also have functional impact forms that students can send to their providers to fill out. And we have these for a variety of categories of diagnoses. So you can see severe and chronic medical conditions listed here. The list that is there is not exhaustive. There are many other diagnoses that fall under the umbrella of severe and chronic medical conditions. And we have other forms for psychological disabilities, as well as learning disabilities, ADHD. So you can see the form that is most appropriate for you to send over to your provider, and your provider should fill out that form in its entirety. If you have any clinical testing like a neuropsych, a psychoeducational report, we love to see that type of documentation as well. And if you do not have either of those, or your provider prefers to write a letter, we do accept letters from providers on students' behalf, as long as it's on official letterhead, includes the information we request on these functional impact forms, and is signed and has the provider's license number as well. The ASAC also highlights some important dates for students to remember throughout registration times for new accommodation requests. May 7th has already passed. That was the priority deadline for first-year students requesting housing accommodations. For academic, dining, physical access, all other accommodation-related requests, the deadline for those is Monday, July 1st. An important thing to note here is just because the deadline has passed does not mean that we won't review the accommodation request. We still engage in the interactive process at any time throughout the year, but depending on the timing of the request and the determination, it may impact the availability of the request or the ability and timeliness of implementation in a specific course. Students can start the registration process by clicking the link that's listed right here. It's also on our website, and you can also email us at any time and we can send those instructions to you as well. And that is the majority of what we share with students on how to register for accommodations. Like I said, we can certainly answer some additional questions if you have any, but try to keep them general. So I'll open the floor to all of our guests today, and feel free to just unmute yourself and ask your question, or you're welcome to put it in the chat or raise your hand.
There's 2 questions in the chat.
Great. If I pull it up, will we see all of them? Let me go to the first ones. Mental health. So clinical documentation for mental health diagnoses, sometimes students have it, sometimes they don't. In a lot of clinical documentation for behavioral concerns or attentional concerns, they may have some assessment tools that use or that measure, anxiety levels, depression levels. If students with mental health diagnoses have not received clinical documentation, the functional impact form is the best way to go. It has all the questions that the provider can answer that will speak to the limitations you may experience and the supports you've had before, treatment, past and current treatment plans. So if you don't have clinical documentation, specifically for certain diagnoses like mental health or other